So we have well, Andrew Callaghan, he responded. Apparently he made a new YouTube channel to talk about it. It's only got like 200 or 300 people. Well, now it's got 500 people, and this is his response. He made it 45 minutes ago. He had put it up on his channel here, and even said right here, he said, "I apologize for my silence with everything going on. I appreciate if you watch the recent video we posted shortly." Okay, so let's see what he has to say. Oh.
I never thought I'd make a video like all right. I never thought I'd make a video like this, but I think there's an important conversation to be had, and I just want to be fully accountable, honest, and transparent with all of you guys. Okay. So I'd like to start by thanking every single person who's came out in the past week to speak about different ways in which my behavior has made them feel uncomfortable or pressured during a sexual situation, and to people who said that I've made unwanted advances and had a hard time with rejection. I'm sure this was not easy to do. It's never easy to speak out, and it was hard for me to hear as well, because to be honest with you, up until this point, I didn't even really realize that I had this pattern that had affected multiple people. Okay. I'd also like to apologize for my silence. I think that when this stuff first came out, I was in a state of denial and shock. I was, just riding the high from my movie that just came out, and then within 48 hours, I was denounced by my closest collaborators, and my name was printed in 40 different news outlets next to the words sexual misconduct, and I just kind of spiraled into a mental health crisis.
Okay,
I'm
fair
okay
enough.
now, but I don't really think this is about me. This is about the people that I've affected. So I just want to express my complete sympathy, respect, and support for anyone who I've done wrong by. And I really want to do better and be fully accountable for everything that I've done. So that being said, I want to make a few things clear. I've always taken no for an answer. As far as consent, I've never overstepped that line. But I think I want to have a more nuanced and important conversation about power dynamics, pressure, and coercion. Because, like I said, I think for a long time, I was behaving in a way that I actually thought was normal. I thought that, going home from the bar alone made you a loser. I thought that persistence was a form of flattery. And I thought that, if at first somebody was reluctant, they're playing hard to get, just try harder. And if you think someone's feeling you, make a physical advance and see if they go with it. And I think that, especially I realized when so many young people, especially young men, rushed to defend me when this stuff first started coming out, that this type of sex pest behavior is normalized. And a lot of people think this stuff is normal when I don't think that it is. And I think that I want to be fully responsible for not having a fluid understanding of consent and what enthusiastic two-way consent looks like. That being said, a lot of the things that have been said online.
Okay, so like I'm trying not to do too much reacting to it until I finish listening to the whole thing. So far, listen, this is obviously going to be a tough conversation. So far, I understand where he's coming from, and I think he got it 100% correct when it comes down to this. This is what we talked about a lot, is that I don't think Andrew Callaghan, and listen, I've been really thinking about this for the past few days, and I've been trying not to be too assertive about my opinion on it. And I've always continuously said we need to listen to potential victims, and also we're innocent until proven guilty. That those are things that we need to maintain. It's good to listen and stew on it. From seeing what the other women had said about him and really thinking about it, I don't think that Andrew Callaghan actively tried to sexually assault any girl or actively tried to put a girl in a situation where they felt like they couldn't say no. But I do think that he may have still done that unintentionally. We're constantly talking about how a lot of people get their education for sexual health or for sex through porn, which teaches people the incorrect way to go after women. It teaches men to be too aggressive and women to take aggression, as well as society teaching people to be very persistent even when they get a no. There's also an issue of, I think, men and women communicate a little bit differently. Men tend to be very direct, and they only really respond well to being direct towards them, whereas women, I would say, are more emotionally intelligent and can kind of read between the lines better. And I remember the first girl, I remember she said that she kept saying no, and then she said I kept making excuses, was actually what I believe she said. And to her, an excuse could be, for instance, if they're on the couch and he's like, hey, do you want to go into the bedroom? And she's like, no, I'd rather stay here. To a man, especially a younger man, that just means oh, maybe we'll have sex on the couch. To a woman, that is hey, let's not do it. And we need to do a good job both sides, to women to be more direct and then men being more emotionally intelligent. And we should talk about explicit consent. Do you want to have sex with me? You can say no. Those are really good words to say, especially with somebody that's in like a power dynamic scenario. Just because you're a man that has money and wealth doesn't mean that like any interaction you have with somebody is inherently bad or weaponizing your power dynamic. But you should be careful and be like, there's nothing wrong with being like, hey, we don't have to do anything. We're cool. Those are the small things create like a really comfortable environment. Enthusiastic consent's a really good thing to start teaching people. It's not something that has historically been really super valued. I will tell you, I've had sex with women when I wasn't enthusiastically consenting. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So I understand where he's coming from. I don't think that he is a predator, is where I'm getting at. I think that I doesn't mean that he should get away with it scot free. I don't know what punishment you would have, and we're only halfway through the video, so there might be more. So far, like I wouldn't denounce Andrew Callaghan as a person that should have his entire career destroyed over this. I don't think that he's intentionally trying to destroy anybody or hurt anybody. When it comes to the second girl, like, and these were the two most credible people, the two women that came forward. You know, she described a scenario where they went out consensually hooked up the first time, and then afterwards she didn't like him. She thought he was weird, et cetera, et cetera. And then he asked her to go out on a date, and she's like, "Yeah, fuck it, I'll go on the date because there'll be free food." But she didn't like him, and so immediately from his perspective, that doesn't know her, one of two things could happen. Maybe she was actually interested, and she decided no. But you know, she's shown interest by going on the date. And then they go on the date, and then it's like, "Oh, you want to sex me?" And she's like, "No." And then she's like, "Well," he's trying to play like the fuckboy game of, "Can you give me a ride home?" And then they're in the car, and he starts like feeling up on her, and she's like, "I don't want this." And you know, there's just this overly persistence that's absolutely wrong, and we don't know the exact story of what went on there. But like these are all the combination of bad conversations around consent in society, in both directions. Men need to be more aware, and women need to be more assertive. And I know I'm not trying to victim blame, but you need to communicate yourself accurately and say, I absolutely do not want this. And we don't know exactly what happened those nights. One of those women may have done that, the other girl, and he may have just continuously pushed the boundary because he thought she was just playing hard to get. You know, the other girl seemed to be less direct. It's just like the unfortunate reality is everybody needs to be as safe as possible. And, you know, you feeling uncomfortable and not wanting to say no, you still need to say no unless there's like a legitimate threat on you. Ultimately, this falls down to a failure on Andrew Callaghan. I don't want to get twisted and seem like I'm blaming these women, because ultimately this falls onto a failure of him. But it's a failure that a lot of men probably engaged in. And I don't think I have, but I don't know. And that's like the scariest part about it. I don't think I've ever put a woman in a position that. I think I've always been very clear about being able to say, like, you don't have to do this. But when I was a young guy, 20 years old, 21 years old, I don't know how pushy I might have been. And like, you know, it's something that stresses me out. I don't know. You know? And I know I've never ever wanted to put a woman in a situation where they felt like threatened or anything, but I don't know. I've never raped a woman. But is there like a scenario where I've put a woman in an uncomfortable situation? Like, I just don't know. You know? So I think that, you know, maybe I have a very male perspective on this topic because I'm a man. But like, I think the most important thing is moving forward, we have these conversations, because I wouldn't want, you know, I wouldn't want you as a young man watching this to make the same mistake Andrew did, and potentially a lot of other men have, or older men have, that didn't even realize they made the wrong choice. You know? You know? So it's a tough topic. Ultimately, I don't think that he's like a predator. You know, and it's not for me to forgive, but I'm just telling you right now, and we're gonna finish the video, so something might change, but it's Andrew Callaghan is not somebody that I'm gonna stay away from content wise. And you know, I know that some people might think I'm an asshole and a piece of shit for that. You know, we have conversations about like what it means to reform, and we have conversations about reforming literal murderers every day. And I think based on Andrew's situation, where it seems like he has pressured women but didn't realize he was pressuring women, I don't think that he's somebody that's beyond any level of redemption. You know, as long as he moves forward and does better. So, you know, that's where I'm at. And you don't have to agree with me, and that might even make you not want to engage in my content. I understand. But that's like how I feel, and I don't want to like shy away from that. But at the same time, I don't want to be somebody who just like virtue signals and says like, no, Andrew Callaghan's bad forever. Like, I just don't want to be that. I feel like a lot of people do that. They just take the side that's considered more socially palatable. And because it's safe. And like, I know it's not the safe perspective, but fuck it, man. Like it's sad. It's just sad because you know what? I don't know. It just sucks, man. This whole situation is definitely terrible. You know, ultimately, let's try to have better communication skills and, you know, yeah. Yeah. It's not even that he's young and that he's making mistakes. It's also that like this was what society education used to be. You know, I'm 32 years old. You know, and I think I've done a really good job of like respecting women's boundaries because I was raised by a single mother. But like, you know, who knows, man? Who knows? You know, this has been something I've been like really like reflecting on myself. Like, how did I used to interact with people? Like, you know, I'm 32 years old. I'm married now. I'm settled down. I'm chilling. You know, so I don't know, man. It's something. Yeah, sex pest is a new word for. Yeah, no, I mean, you know, I used to be kind of a fuck boy, so it's like, I mean, like, was I kind of a sex pest in some capacity? But I don't know. You know, I don't know. If he continued the behavior, would I quit watching? Of course. Yeah, because he's already acknowledged that he's doing the wrong thing. So if he kept doing it, of course I would stop watching it. But we're talking about like intentions. Like, what are people's intentions? I don't think that his intention was to ever hurt people. You know, I think most people don't have that intention. You know, so
About me are not true. A lot of things are missing really important contextual information that I think would change people's interpretation of a lot of these situations, but I'm not here to invalidate anybody's lived experience.
Well, I won't even say that. I don't think it's necessarily worth getting into like the depths of it because then again we start having like I just fundamentally I don't think that Andrew tried to force people. Some of the context would be good to give, but at the end of the day, I think it really boils down to just a shitty lack of communication and bad sexual education.
If you feel pressured, you know, that's just what it is. I hope that young people and young men in particular can use my mistakes to learn and move through life with a better understanding of consent.
That's fair.
As far as what I have planned, I'm not really sure what comes next. I mean,
intentions mean everything. I don't know what the damage is what it is. Sure, the damage is what it is, but like intentions matter, and you can't say intentions don't matter. That's such a silly thing because if intentions didn't matter, we wouldn't separate manslaughter from murder. You know, if I accidentally drove a car into somebody and killed them, is that the same thing as me intentionally driving a car into them and killing them? The intentions do matter. It doesn't mean that the act of the person dying in that scenario doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that there shouldn't be a punishment. But don't you think that there should be a little bit more nuance than that? Of the intention not matter. I just feel like I've made mistakes just outside of any of this. When I was younger, like you break something on accident. Let's say you knock into like your mom's favorite cup or something. I don't know, and it's glass for whatever reason, and it breaks on the floor. Should you get punished as if you did it on purpose? You know, I don't think you'd agree with that. So I think that we should try to engage it like a little bit more intelligently with this. Or let me not say that because I don't want you to think I'm trying to be a dick to you, but just like with a little more like openness. Let's engage with like a little more openness and understanding, you know?
Obviously, you know, reporting is my one true love, and I'm 25 years old and I have my whole life ahead of me. But I really think that I need to do some serious work on myself and figure myself out. So I'm going to start therapy sessions pretty much immediately. Also, not to blame alcohol, but I truly believe that alcohol was a contributing factor to my poor decision making.
Probably, man. It seemed like one of the things that Andrew did was they would get drunk with the girls, and alcohol is a really, really bad. It's not good. I know that sounds silly. I drink sometimes with my wife. We I drink, or I'll have friends and family, and I'll get a little drunk, or she'll get a little drunk, and we'll have a little bit of fun. But when you're both drunk, people don't act the same, and like people can do things they may not have wanted to do. But you know, if both people are the equal level of drunk, it's still, I would consider that consensual. Or maybe you regret things after, or maybe you don't remember certain things, or it's just it's a bad mixture to get to drink. You know, alcohol and sex is a bad mixture unless you're like super comfortable with the person, like, you know what I mean? Because you know, sometimes drunk sex can hit different with my wife, but you know what I mean. For hookup culture, I think is something that we should be. It can be very toxic. We should be very apprehensive about hookup culture because you're a bunch of people that don't really know each other too well, that are exploring boundaries. You don't know the different way that people speak about different things. Yeah, there's things that I do around the house and my wife bothers my wife, but like she knows that I don't mean poorly by it. And the same thing with my wife. But like if we didn't know each other and we lived together, we might think that we were doing things intentionally to be antagonistic. So,
And I think that alcohol in general has had a devastating impact on my life.
okay.
So I think I'm going to make the decision to join the 12-step program for Alcoholics Anonymous. And
Okay.
during this journey into sobriety, I want to take a serious step back from public life. And like I said, figure myself out.
Okay.
And I hope that this
Yeah, I mean, I respect that. Like, and maybe it's just all performative, but like, I'm resonating with it because I just sound so cringe, but I'm gonna say it here. I've been trying to take a big step back from. This is so embarrassing, like adult material, because I really want. I really feel like it's been having negative impacts on my life, and I want to have more like devotion because I've been like either poly or open for like 10 years, and like it's a struggle to go from that to just to being more monogamous. I've never done anything that would be considered cheating to our relationship, but I just want to be a better man and a better person. And I'm trying to like be that, you know what I mean? I'm trying to be better with my devotion to my wife and stuff. And it can be hard. And so like, I'm kind of resonating with some of this because I'm really trying, man. I really want to be a better I really want to be a good husband and I want to be a good father to my kids. I'm also really trying to get like healthy because like my wife and I had like a conversation about eating yesterday. It was so bad. We want to have kids, but it can be a little tough because we're both overweight. And she's like, I don't know if I want to necessarily force ovulation because like what if our desire to have a kid makes the kid come out with additional problems? Because like being overweight, me on medication that I'm on, like I'm on metformin for my diabetes, and apparently that has a negative impact on sperm from like a study I saw. And being overweight as a woman increases the likeliness that the kid might come out with some kind of a disability. And so like that was hard. We're having hard. It's hard. We're like fuck. Like we gotta lose weight and get healthier. So like our kids we shouldn't just have kids just because we want them. We should have kids because we want them, and we want them to like if it takes us another 6 months, it would be better for the kid. I don't know, man. I'm just going through a lot of life stuff. I was just going through a lot of life stuff. I'm really trying to like get my shit together, get my vices together, my eating, my looking at illicit material. I'm just trying to be a better man. It's tough. So like the alcohol thing resonates with me. I don't drink alcohol really, like in any serious way. Like I do very rarely, maybe once a month, so I don't really have to worry about that. I never had a problem with alcohol. You know, but I can kind of resonate with some of this other stuff.
reaches the ears of anyone who's felt affected by me, I'd love to reach out to you, or you can reach out to me, even just for me to say I'm sorry, and I really apologize.
Yeah, good
I
balance,
appreciate
true.
you all.
Sometimes you can't get a good balance, and you have to just quit. You know what I mean?
I also want to apologize to my closest collaborators, my friends, my family, and people who will have to wear this stain on their career forever. You guys don't deserve this, and I love you guys. That being said, if you never want to watch Channel 5 again, I understand. I hope you remember the
Silent Super Chatty $2.
Me.
Proud to hear
Oh
it, Papa.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
empathy and media literacy that we have
I
tried to
miss
put
all
in.
that.
I understand. I hope you remember the missions of radical empathy and media literacy that we have tried to put into the world through our coverage. All right, that's all I want to say.
Okay. Yeah, man. So personally, I think it was a decent like apology of the situation. I think it was genuine. It was short. A lot of these YouTubers will go on for hours on their shit. Not hours, but you could disagree with me. That's fine. That's somebody in the chat said, L take Papa. This is obviously damage control. If he cared, he would have responded to the woman when they messaged him privately. He's just worried to lose everything after he made the top. That's probably part of it. Part of the reason part of the reason that he did it, I mean, he effectively says it here, is that he didn't believe it at first. He didn't believe he did those things at first, and he probably was terrified for like he built this career up, and he probably was terrified. But that doesn't mean that this isn't genuine. If you don't think it's genuine, that's totally fine. Saying I don't want to invalidate anyone's experience is in the same breath as saying a lot of things are missing context that would change a person's interpretation as a choice. Try again, Adrian. I don't know. I get what he's saying. It's not ideal, but from how I interpret it is he's saying like there are things, I don't think that they're being accurate in their representation, but they're probably not lying. It's one of those things where like when it comes to online situations, first of all, we're having the wrong conversation online about consent, just like we're having the wrong conversation offline about consent. Offline is frankly, our consent doesn't focus, our conversations about consent offline don't focus enough around creating comfortable environments to consent. Our conversations online focus too much on everything is rape. When you see people that are saying that we shouldn't be able to consent, like that people that are rich and famous shouldn't be able to consensually hook up with girls, like that's not the right conversation about consent. That's it's removing the autonomy from the women who want to sleep with guys that find it attractive if they have money or power, right? The correct conversation is that everybody has their own level of autonomy. People in powerful situations, they should make sure that they use that reasonably and say like, you can say no to me, it's okay, things like that. Create comfortable environments to say no, get explicit consent. These are the right conversations. We're not having it on or offline. And so like I think part of it is that like, there's most likely some of these women had these interactions, felt wrong about it, and then over the years when we're talking about canceling 19-year-olds for sexing 17-year-olds, and we're saying that rich famous men can't even sleep with other girls that aren't rich and famous as well because like that's always rape. They're part of them is probably some of it is probably making them feel a little bit worse about the situation than is actually called for. And then on the other hand, you have guys that are going around being too aggressive and assertive because in the real world, we're not, we're not having those right conversations about consent. There's so many moving parts. Like I think that ultimately, its situation sucks, and I don't think Andrew did it on purpose. But in the time where everything is grooming and everything is rape online, it's, some people get gaslit into thinking that they actually were raped or groomed when they may not have been. I'm not saying that those girls weren't violated in any capacity, but our online conversation about these topics is rough. And, ultimately, what happened to them is terrible, but I don't think Andrew intentionally did anything. And that might be a very male perspective, But I think as long as he moves forward, operating in better capacity, I didn't turn myself back up. I think he can move on from this. So if you disagree, I understand. That's my take on that one. Hopefully we stop with all this shit though, because I'm getting so fucking burnt out about this. It's just burning me the fuck out, man. I'm not like involved, but talking about this stuff is a burnout, especially when I try to. I'm as honest as I can be. I try to be as honest as possible, and I know some of the things I say might be deemed like socially not palatable, and it could like fuck me in the ass. But I'm trying to have the right conversation. What I think is important about this stuff. So, but who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen? I'm confused. Isn't grooming something you can only do to kids, or have I been misunderstanding? Grooming is mostly something you can only really do to kids. You can't groom a 21-year-old as a 30-year-old traditionally. You could like groom somebody for sex work like Andrew Tate, through using like the lover boy method. So you can do that to like a grown, like an adult woman, but not like a 30-year-old fundamentally interacting with 21-year-olds is not grooming. Grooming is a very intentional, methodical process of setting somebody up for sexual exploitation. It's much more complex. We use the word too much.
I want Papa Gut to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.